Thanks for tuning in to another show in the Next Reel family of film podcasts.
Want to skip those ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it. Welcome to Movies We Like, part of the Next Reel family of shows on True Story FM. I'm Andy Nelson, and that over there is Pete Wright.
Hello, everybody.
On today's episode, we have invited filmmaker Miguel Ángel Ferrer to talk about The Sea Inside, a movie he likes. Miguel is the Venezuelan-American director of The Shadow of the Sun, a moving new film about two estranged brothers who enter a talent contest in the hope of changing their lives. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me.
We are thrilled to have you, especially because the craziness of the world between U.S. and Venezuela, it's nice being able to talk with somebody of Venezuelan origin who can kind of like share a story that isn't something that's terrifying in the news, but it's something wonderful and joyous about the country.
For sure.
I want to get started on you, though, and kind of your career. Before we talk about The Shadow of the Sun and The Sea Inside, how did you get started in filmmaking, and what drew you to kind of eventually getting to the point where you're going to make your own feature film?
I grew up in Venezuela. My mom's Cuban. My dad's Spanish. My mom was a dancer early in her age, as a young adult. And my dad, even though he was a businessman, he in the corporate world, he always had a Betamax camera on his shoulder.
Nice.
And in Venezuela, he would go to these adventures with his friends to Canaima, to La Gran Sabana, to Mérida. And he would record all these adventures. Then he would come back home and edit tape to tape a whole 90-minute movie. He would create the credits. He would film those
Nice.
credits, edit that, put music to it, and then he would throw a party about 2 months after the trip. And he would invite everybody, and then he would screen this movie of the adventure. And it was just such a joyous time. And as a kid growing up, it was a way of me living those adventures. And I wanted to be part of those adventures, right? So really early on, without me knowing, and really without him knowing too, he was creating cinema for me. And he was bringing these adventures, to me through the medium of television and film, right? And I had this really, I guess, romantic view of these adventures, right? Obviously, he did a film, when they got flat tires, or when the trucks went into the river and they had to wait for a day to get somebody to get them out of there. I think it was subconsciously just ingraining what filmmaking was to me. And, we always went to the movie theaters and we saw films and TV. I remember having HBO for the first time at the house, at the apartment in Venezuela. And then HBO used to have, they still do, but they used to have these behind the scenes after the show, the movie play that had 5 minutes behind the scenes. And I would stay through the credits to watch how they made that. I never knew that filmmaking was a career until I was 19. Well, we moved to Miami in 96. My passion for filmmaking was always there. Whenever a teacher would ask us to, let's say, do a presentation on Sevilla in Spain, on Sevilla and the agriculture, the politics, the terrain, the geography, all that, I would just go to them and say, hey, and I was 12, and I would tell them, instead of doing a PowerPoint, can I make a movie? They said, what do you mean? Yeah, I got this script where, my group of friends, my 5 guys would go on a cruise ship. The cruise ship hits some rocks. It sinks, and then we wash ashore into the shores of not Sevilla, Valencia. And then we would, have to acclimate into the culture, talk about the weather, talk about the agriculture, talk about the arts. And then, and then we come home and back to Miami and we have to present it. We would shoot us on a dinghy raft in a lake in Doral, Miami, washing up ashore and then going into all these, we would do graffiti. We would put big poster boards and do graffiti for like the agricultural fields. I would grab, and it was just problem solving. So I would say, okay, how do we make ourselves? How do I put me and my friends in a museum in Valencia? It's like, oh, I just take a picture of the museum from the book that I got from the library. Take a picture of my friends, cut that out, paste them together, and then film that.
That's awesome.
And then put a little music and sounds in the background, and then cut to my friends, close up talking, with a background, with a similar background. So I was doing production design, filmmaking without knowing, right? And it was just, it was having a vision and then problem solving as to how to make it with the resources that you had. Nobody told me it was filmmaking. There was no YouTube, no Instagram, none of that. Filmmaking wasn't really like a career, especially in the Cuban American enclave in Miami at that time. That wasn't like a reality. That wasn't a thing that people were doing. Yes, I knew who Spielberg was. Yes, I knew who George Lucas was. Yes, I knew all these greats, but it wasn't a thing, right? So, but I kept on doing that, and then it was only until I was 19 that a longer story that I won't go into, but basically I was training track and field, and through a lot of serendipitous moments, I landed in a film program, and I realized, oh, film is something that I can actually make a living out of. That's it. This is going to be my life for the rest of my life.
Fantastic.
I just love that your early projects involved trying to figure out how to make it natural to put victims of horrific shipwrecks sound natural in a museum. But have you seen the agriculture? I think that slays me to no end. I got to ask, you're in Miami, you're in the Cuban American culture in Miami, and you drop names like Lucas and Spielberg, but who did you find you were aspiring to? I imagine you're sitting in this community thinking, oh, well, those are those guys. Like, how do you see yourself in those guys? I imagine you're looking for other role models. Who was there for you?
Well, I think that the first really like Latin American filmmakers that really made a huge impact on me were, I saw Cronos really early on.
Okay.
So Del Toro, I was one of those that I said, what is that? That's different. That's very, very different. And when I started kind of dipping my toes into the Latino filmmakers, once I started studying film history, then I started getting into all the greats. And then later on, Iñárritu, Cuarón, started looking at all these guys really from the Mexican filmography that I really gravitated to. Padilla, and really a lot of really great filmmakers. Venezuelan cinema, for example, didn't really come into my radar until I was like 25, because I had already lived until I was already 13 years in the States since I was 12, so it wasn't something that kind of gravitated in my wheelhouse really. More Spanish cinema because of my dad. My dad's from Galicia, from Spain. And really commercial and American cinema is really what had an impact on me. In fact, I remember the day, I didn't even know that I was moving to the States when I came here, where we came as a vacation, right? In 1996. And it was July 8th of 1996, and I landed on the plane in Miami, and my mom's sister says, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go see Independence Day right away." And she goes, oh, "Okay, cool. So we can go see it tomorrow. I'll find some time." I'm like, no. I need to go see it
right now.
Right.
Right now. And she's like, "Oh, okay." We dropped off the bags in my grandma's house in Westchester, in Miami, and we went straight to the cinema. I learned what M&Ms and popcorn at the movie theaters tasted like. And it was one of these like old mom and pop cinema. And I saw Independence Day, and I was obviously blown away by everything about this movie. I had seen the advertisements in Caracas for like 5 months, and then my aunt asked me why, what's the obsession here? What, I mean, it was a great movie, but well, why did you want to see it? Like, why couldn't you wait till tomorrow? And I said, because this movie is coming out in Venezuela in 4 months. I am going to be the first Venezuelan in the history of Venezuela to watch this
To watch this movie.
So,
Awesome.
that kind of cinema always had a big impact. Jurassic Park and as a kid, they had this big impact on me, right? Like taking you to a place and showing you things that you've never seen before.
Yeah. Right.
It's beautiful.
Well, so then how do you get into it from that point? Because I believe that you actually started doing music videos first, and then you worked your way into finally you were at a film festival and you're like, why am I not up there? What do I need to do? And that was like your inspiration to say, okay, it's time. So how are the steps that you went through to kind of get to that decision?
The first professional gig I had actually was a music video for an Afro-Cuban funk band called the Spam All Stars in Miami. And I was still a junior in college, and I would go to their concerts. I would chase them a little bit. I spoke to the manager, and about 6 months later, I was doing a video for them. I convinced them because I said, here's my reel of the things that I've done in college. You're going to get a $10,000 product for, $2,000 because you're going to get all the university equipment. You're going to get all the university labor for free. So let me do my thesis, my senior thesis on a music video /short. And I pitched them the idea, and they loved it. And we went on. From there, my dad and my mom my dad was the production designer. My best friend was his art director. And all my best friend's dads helped build that set in that soundstage at the university when I had teachers that I hadn't had class with or met that would come to the stage to take pictures on the set because they couldn't believe that we had done that, right? And obviously a lot of family, blood, sweat, and tears. But I was actually showing the pictures a couple of days ago, and it was very a beautiful moment because they were all together in Miami, and I told them, I was like, you guys are a big part of the reason as to why I'm here, because it takes a village, right? It takes a village to help somebody achieve their dreams. Started in music videos. Then when I came out to LA, a lot of people don't know this. My first job out in LA was washing dishes at a club. I did that for about 3 weeks. I just had to do what I had to do in order to pay the bills and keep the dream going. My parents actually didn't know about it. People sometimes think that you're handed things in a silver platter. And even though I've had tremendous luck and I've had tremendous privilege of having a great family that supported me, you still got to go and get down and dirty. In the film world, you still got to go, I believe, you still got to go and pick up cable. You still got to go and clean the camera. You still got to go and, set the crafty. If you don't do those things early on in your career, how are you going to be able to appreciate them, when later on in your life where you want to get to where you want to go? So I did that. My first professional gig here in LA was as a cameraman for Nat Geo. Longer story that I landed pretty much through exaggerating how much I knew about a specific camera at the moment.
You wouldn't be the first one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I read the manual the night before, and I was like, I move this camera, the P2, the first one of the first digital cameras in the market, cinema digital cameras. And then I did that for about 2 years. While I did that, I chased an executive producer on television named Michael Robin. Chased him for about 1.5 years. And finally, I got a meeting with him, and he said, "How can I help you?" And I said, "Man, I will make the best Cuban coffee you've ever had in your life. I'll make it every single day right here for you. I just want to work with you." And he laughed. About 2 months later, he gave me a job as a post coordinator on a TV show called Trust Me. I didn't want to be a post coordinator. I wanted to be on set. I wanted to be what he was. And so I thought being an AD. would be great. But he put me as a post coordinator, and I took it, and it was great. And what I didn't know is that he started as a post coordinator, and what that gave me was a master class, a bird's eye view on the entire process through the studio system. So I, as a post coordinator, I would get the white draft of the script and all the revisions, and then I was the guy delivering the tape to the network, right, of every episode. So I got a literal master class on how the studio system works on the television side and how to finish a product at a high quality. So that gave me that. The Nat Geo thing gave me the skill set of being able to throw myself off the mountain with a camera. And I started then, once I did that, I started directing music videos again for a small company in LA, then the labels in Latin America. I moved on to commercials about 2 years later, again, through perseverance, because I was a music video director, and, the commercial agencies and the EPs, they look at you and they say, you can do great music videos, but you can't do a commercial. You don't know how to. You've never done it, and you don't know how to. And I don't trust that you can do it. Somebody gave me the chance. Then I've been directing commercials for about 15 years now. In between that, I did a movie just as a director for Lionsgate. It was a learning experience. I talk about it often. I think that if I hadn't done that movie and learned a lot in that movie, I wouldn't have been able to do Shadow the way that I did. But once I did that movie, the experience kind of took me out of narrative, and I went into commercial world, branded, still did a couple music videos, still did some TV. And then it was only in 2020 when I said, you know what, I need to get back to my narrative dream. And I started doing shorts in 2020, the best year to do, decide to go into production. It's like, I'm going to do 3 shorts this year. And I did, and I did do them. One of them before the pandemic and 2 of them about September that year.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
And then I did the shorts, I did the festival circuit. And then even after doing those shorts, and 2 of them are part of their feature film proof of concepts, I couldn't get traction into, doing a feature for myself, even though I had done a studio feature before. So I just said, you know what? Like, you guys know the story. I went to a film festival and I got inspired. And I said, I need to do something. I need to present something at this festival, and I need to do something for me that I can do myself. I don't need permission from anybody to do it. I don't need to wait for $1 million or $5 million. I can just go and grab what I have. These are the things that I have. This is the money that I have, and do it. And then Shadow came out of that.
And then you did. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Shadow now. So it's the Sinners of Venezuela, right? I mean, as far as like breaking records, as far as the number of nominations at the Venezuelan Academy Awards, essentially. And very well received, and it's a story that's very very touching. It takes place in a couple places in Venezuela, mostly in Acarigua, which is I guess kind of a smaller city over in one of the different like the states that's not as close to Caracas, but and so there's a lot of kind of that small town feel of what it's like for these 2 estranged brothers to just kind of live and trying to struggle through their lives post dealing with the death of their parents. And our protagonist, Leo, is in a marriage that's frustrating. His brother is deaf and we're going to discuss a few spoilers in this conversation. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip forward a little bit. But he's dealing with his own homosexuality, and there's like gangs kind of running the town that they have to contend with. And then on top of all of that, Alex decides, hey, I'm writing a song and I want us to sing it together, or I want you to sing it with your voice, with my words at this contest. Like, how did you come to the story? Like, what drew you to, I mean, as a filmmaker, you obviously have Venezuelan connection, but was that your first thing? Like, let's do it in Venezuela.
The inspiration is twofold. One of them was part of the inspiration was my trips through the interior of the country with one of our producers, Will Romero, and a dear friend. He convinced me to go back to Venezuela after 15 years to go shoot music videos and do things. When I did that, I had to fly through Bogota to Bogota and then to Cucuta, which is in the border, and then cross by foot, kind of sneaking into my own country.
Wow.
Because I didn't have a Venezuelan passport.
Oh.
So the way that it works at that time, and I think still, I mean, things are changing very rapidly, but if you were born in Venezuela, you can enter Venezuela, but you can't leave without a valid Venezuelan passport. To get that passport, it's like $1,500, $2,000, and it's probably about 6 months.
Jeez.
So, I had to sneak into the country, do a music video, and then sneak out. And it's a whole literal Indiana Jones adventure with like, military checkpoints and people pulling me out of the car and stopping me. And
wait, I gotta say, Miguel, man, there are a lot of places on the planet to film music videos. At what point does the cost benefit for you? Like, what was it that really drew you to do the Indiana Jones part? Are you just like a nut for adventure too, or was it? I mean, there's got to be something pulling you so hard to do this in your home country.
A couple of things. One is Indiana Jones. Yeah, because back to my dad's adventures, I wanted to be him. I wanted to be.
Okay, it's a dad story. I get it now.
Yeah,
so, I feel it.
No, and also like I wanted to establish roots. It was always my dream to go film in Venezuela and to establish roots there, as far as like crews and knowing the landscape. And then the way that we did it with Will, that trip that took like 28 hours to get from the border to the capital. Our car broke down. We had a military guy like jump into our car. We had to give him, and we couldn't really say like where I was coming from or who I was, and nobody knew me then. But if somebody hears like, oh, this is a director that works in Hollywood, like people start talking.
Right.
Maybe want to get
you
money.
couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was quite an adventure. And what happened was that I, through Will and through his family in Acarigua and his friends, I re-encountered my country through the people. And I saw these people. I saw them with my very own eyes, how they make miracles happen every single day, and how they have these insanely, tremendously difficult obstacles every single day to do the simplest of things, to go get gas. When I tell you that in Acarigua and in the outskirts of Acarigua, if you want to get gas, you have to make a 2-day line, a 2-day queue where you park your car and because there is no gas.
Wow.
If you want to skip that line, get ready to pay $150 for $20 worth or $30 worth of gas. So how do you do things on a day-to-day basis? How do you go around those obstacles, and how do you make it so that day you get gas? And when you have no power, you have no internet, all of a sudden you have no hot running water, you go get up, you want to go get milk at the market, and there is no milk at the market, but there's milk at the market that's 5 miles away. But for that, you need a car. Right?
Yeah.
And you don't have gas, but your aunt has gas. Let's go call her. Wait, there's no internet, so because there's no power, so you got to walk over there to convince her to go the whole thing, then like that, and then you got a flat tire, and then the guy that's at the market that told you, I'll I have a gallon of milk for you. He says, man, we ran out. And then what do you do now? Anyways, 7:00 comes around and you have a full spread at the table with the milk. And then you go, how do you do that? How do you do that every single day? And then I saw that, and they do it with such passion and with such warmth and happiness. And I'm like, why isn't this in a movie? Why haven't I seen this in a movie? I've seen a lot of movies about Venezuela and about Latin America and about the crazy shit that happens there and the oppression and the dictatorships. But where's this? Where's the day-to-day? Where are these miracle workers? And how can I put that into the screen? And how can I make that into a movie that doesn't just stay in Venezuela, but that has international appeal, that I can take to an international audience, and that Mexican brothers or Mexican siblings or Peruvian siblings or American siblings go, that's me. That's me. That's me because I also have an impossible dream, and I've also had obstacles, and I've also had people that told me that I'm crazy, but I still gotta go out there and do it.
But like the number of times I choked up, like it's hard to even have a conversation about some of the beats in this movie that impacted me. So much of it is rooted in the cycle of the life of the motorcycle. The motorcycle is a problem in the opening sequence, and at the end, when he says, "I can feel it," and he drives off on the motorcycle, that is crushing. Kudos. The entire model of the movie being about debt and about how money pushes you toward this just crazy aspiration hit home so hard for me. And hearing you talk about it is so compelling that how aspiration can drive you toward survival being the thing steering this car that's driving on fumes. This just what you are willing to do in spite of all of your doubt against it. It just feels good. He comes off stage, he opens his arms. Oh man, right here. It just gets me right here. I can't even talk about it. It hits so hard. What these guys are willing to do for each other, to lift each other up and think, I did my best. It's all I got. It's just really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
I realized I started with a question in there, and then I got so wrapped up choking up on my own emotion that I didn't actually ask it. So I'll let you respond to my nonsense. And
no, I love it. And no, it's not. I love it. Thank you so much, because it means the world to me that you saw it. The motorcycle thing is very, very conscious. It's something that we did in the sound design with Enrique Diaz, and that we wanted to make sure that it was there. Like, that motorcycle doesn't roar like that in real life. But at the end, I told him it has to
kick it up.
It has to be a Harley. It has to be V8. Because Leo has to become the man that he's always wanted to be in order to do the things that he needs to and wants to do.
Yeah. There were a few things that really hit home, especially after hearing you talk about kind of like people just trying to survive day to day. Like they all have their own lives, but they're still trying to survive day to day. And it's one is just a small moment, but it's when the two of them are walking back from their little makeshift recording studio or their rehearsal studio that they've kind of created. And Alex is just like, can't we just hop on the bike and ride? He's like, you want to pay for the gas? Like that speaks very directly to what you were talking about. But the other one that really hit me was, again, out at that location when they're having a blow up, and you have that moment where he's describing what happened with the death of their parents and walking through what wasn't available in their time of need. When he took them there, they were caught in a fire. He took his burned parents to the hospital, who had no gauze, no morphine to give them, and he had to just basically sit with his parents as they were in pain and slowly dying. And it's just like, God, that is just so hard to hear, how somebody has to live through that and the pain that he's held on all that time, and finally having that moment talking to his brother about it. It's tough. It really is tough.
Yeah. They I would try to get through this answer without choking up, but there's a lot of people, thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands in Venezuela went through that, and went through a similar situation where, you get to the hospital and you got nothing. You literally got nothing. And this is not a war-torn country. This is not a like some place that has been, reduced to rubble by wars. And this is one of the most rich and prolific countries in the Western Hemisphere, and then you look at those things, and that's why Venezuelans see that and they cry. They know the reality because everyone knows one person where that happened, that literally is the exact situation that happened. And to me, it had double meaning because that moment, some people say that the movie's not too political. I beg to differ, because in the way that with the way that I think cinema, for me, the cinema I like is the cinema that tells you a story and has so many layers under it that you yourself come up with your own answer to the ideology, or to the things that are being said, or to the protests that are being put on screen, but you don't really feed them forcefully to the audience. You tell them through a story, through an allegory, through a metaphor. In that case of that scene, that's every Venezuelan. Every Venezuelan is Leo, because we saw our parents in Venezuela. We became supermen and superwomen, and we saw them burning, and we took them out of the fire, and we were literal supermen. Put them both on our shoulders, took them to the hospital, and guess what? Nothing happened. There was nothing. There was no way. And we got to see our own parents, or our land, slowly die through 25, 26, 27 years. To me, that, that's the double meaning behind that, right? It's the reality, because that's exactly what happened to a lot of people. But also, that's Leo there is talking about, and I was talking about Venezuela. It's like you were young. You're 24, you don't know how our parents, how our land actually died,
Powerful.
So much of this story, especially between, Alex and Leo, is carried on a very internal sort of barometer, and these guys figuring out each other in this new space together. I want to talk about your process of casting these guys and figuring out how you could be confident that they're going to be able to carry this story.
Well, when I had the idea for the movie, the same night I called Carlos Manuel Gonzalez, who plays Leo. I had seen him in an audition for a short film, and he had just killed it. We ended up not shooting that in Venezuela, so I couldn't cast him for that particular project. But he was always on my mind, and we kept in touch. And then when I got the idea, the first spark of the movie, of the story, was the confrontation between the three of them. When Alex comes to confront Yolanda, that was the kernel of the idea. Then I very quickly said, how do I get there? This is the story. I called Carlos and I said, I'm going to write this movie. Here's the pitch. Here's the thing. I haven't written it, but I'm only going to write it if you say yes to this role. And then
Nice.
he luckily said yes. And then once the script was written and we were casting, Marcos Purroy was our casting director. Carlos was very much involved in the casting process. They put together 4 or 5 actors per role. It was a closed casting. That's where I found Gracie Mena. They already knew them, right? But I got exposed to these new faces: Gracie Mena, Camila Curtis, Richard Clark, Hazel Ruiz, David Olaves. And we had everybody. And then now it was time to get our Alex. The acting community in Venezuela is small because our industry has been destroyed since 2002. So really, actors really only live off of 95% theater, right? And then some film here and there. The deaf acting community is minute, almost non-existent, right? We saw 2 young men that were great, but they didn't quite fit the role the way that I wanted. They ended up being some of Alex's friends in the movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were.
Now that you say that, you could kind of tell. Like I could see it.
Yeah. And
That's awesome.
And he, the producers, Will and the rest of the producers said, look, you got to find this kid in Mexico and Colombia and Argentina, and then fly him over. But I'm a little hard-headed. I'm a Taurus. I'm a little hard-headed.
Yeah.
My wife says I'm hard-headed. I say I'm perseverant.
There you go. There you go.
And I said, this kid exists. So we were being taught Venezuelan Sign Language by two beautiful and amazing, strong women from Venezuela, from Guatire, for about 2 months before production. And I turned to them and I said, listen, this is a situation. We're 3 weeks away from production, and I need a deaf young man to play this role. So can you bring me anybody from 20 to 30 years of age who is deaf in the entire country? Well, I'll pay the bus ticket, I'll pay the plane ticket, whatever it is. They just got to be in the capital in 5 days. They brought about 8 young men. Angelo Lopez was the last one that we saw. And as soon as he entered the room, I saw the tape. As soon as he entered the room, he just lit up. Like the room lit up. I could see he was nervous, sweating, flubbing the lines. He didn't know what was going on. Like he would look off camera, and then Carlos would tell him like, keep going. And then he would like look, and like his aura, his presence was there. And on his side, there was a WhatsApp group. He was part of a deaf WhatsApp group in Venezuela. He's a kid from El Valle. El Valle is a really poor area in Caracas. It's a slum, a very dangerous and poor slum. And he saw looking for a deaf young man for a movie. And then he tells his mom and his girlfriend, oh, look at this, but I'm not going to go because I work construction and I'm teaching sign language. And they said, no, you should go. You should absolutely go and do your best. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So he went. And to this day, he's won 4 Best Actor awards at international film festivals. Troy Kotsur, who's Oscar winner for Coda, saw him, had a 1-hour Zoom with him, showed him his Oscar at the end and said, you're going to win one of these one day. And he's living in Spain. We're trying to get him into the industry there, and then trying to see, about getting him a visa so he can come work over here. And I think the moral of the story, there's a lot of morals. There's a lot of like lessons in that story. And one of them is, you got to listen to the women in your life.
Always.
You got, sometimes they have this like sixth sense, or they know some stuff. And then the other lesson is really, you got to do your best and pull your heart. He really worked his butt off. Like he came into, when I went into Venezuela about 5-6 weeks before production, and I met with him, he had the script, he had it laminated, he was working with the interpreters, he worked with Carlos, and he worked with me. He really did the work of a professional actor, a veteran professional actor, without knowing that he was doing it. And people, every time somebody say, oh, he never acted in his life. People, when I say that to crowds, people gasp. They gasp. And I go, I know, because if you put this kid in an indie film with Bryan Cranston and Meryl Streep, the kid is nominated for an Oscar. Yeah. No question. The kid is a powerhouse.
It's amazing how willing he is to like put himself out there, especially as a first timer. Because you really just feel that the entire time. I want to move into the sea inside here in a minute, but I just have to call out one thing that I absolutely adored. And I don't know if this is all sign language or just the way that it is in Venezuela, but when they did the signing, when they were talking about the Matrix, and it was like the whole like moving thing, I'm like, that was like the best way to do sign for that movie. I couldn't believe it. I just like laughed out loud at that. It was like so perfect.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that. That's the only, I believe so. I think that there's one, but it was the one more, but that one was a mistake. The only conscious decision of grounding this movie in a particular moment in time, because I wanted it to be atemporal. Like you don't know if it's like 95 or 2000 or 2005 or maybe 2012. Like there's no like cell phones and things like that. But there is a couple of instances where we kind of had to, I missed it. But you don't know if it's an iPhone, you don't know if it's what it is, right? Or a Razor. But that tells the only time that it tells you, okay, this is definitely after 1997.
Yep. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's the only clue. 99. Yeah. Right.
Do you know in your head specifically when it is and you're just not telling?
Yes. I think that great I mean, my example sometimes it's, the Finchers, the Nolans, and others that have movies with like open-ended questions, right? And things, and they always, more often than not, they have an answer. They have their own answer. They have to. And then the lesson is you have to have your answer. The audience can have their own answer, but you have to anchor your decisions on your particular answer, even if you never reveal it.
Right. Yeah, I love that.
Like the book, or like the song, or like when people have asked me, like, what book was it? And I was like, I got my book. That actually happened to me, and I have my book. What's yours?
Well, the song too. It's almost, it gives you that sense of sort of just crushing emptiness, and also I just supplanted, whatever he's doing with whatever I wanted to hear, whatever I needed to hear in that moment. It's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears and start talking about The Sea Inside. This is a great movie. Alejandro Amenábar directed this, and you'd mentioned your dad is from Galicia, and this is where the story takes place. And we're following Ramon San Pedro, who is a quadriplegic, and he's been that way for about 29 years, and he just wants to die, and the system won't let him. Powerful film, Javier Bardem at the center of it. Let's start talking about this movie. What drew you to this particular story?
Originally, I don't know what my instinct, because this was before film school. It was just 2004. So I saw it I saw the trailer in late 2003.
Okay.
Yeah. Around that time, yeah. And I was still living in Miami. It was before I went to film school. And I was, I think, first year of college. I wasn't even studying film at the moment. And I saw the trailer. And as soon as I saw it, I said, this is going to win the Best Picture Oscar for Best International Film. The Oscar for Best International Film. This is going to win it. I have a feeling. Just from the trailer. And I said, okay. When is it coming out of Miami? Okay, it's coming out of Miami in 2 weeks in like 2 cinemas, okay, in Miami. So I tell all my friends, hey, we gotta go see this movie. Look at the trailer, and I tell all my friends, and none of my friends are film buffs or in the film industry, like at that moment, right?
Yeah, right.
And we gotta go see this movie, and like, yeah, we're gonna see the movie, we're gonna see it for sure. No, like seriously, it's gonna come out on Regal South Beach Cinema, 7:30 at night on a Saturday. This Saturday we're all going. Yeah, for sure. Saturday comes along, and I'm making the phone calls. No one's going. No one's going, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about any of you right now. I'm gonna go see this movie. So I went to literally across the city, because we live in Kendall, so it's like 30 miles to South Beach. And then I go and I'm by myself, and I'm sitting I think there was like 4 people in that theater. And I sit and I watch this film. And it was Saturday. And I get back home probably like at 10:30, 11. And my mom asked me, like, how was the movie? And I tell them this. I go, listen to me. And you're going to listen to me right now. If you don't go watch this movie tomorrow at Regal South Beach, and to them, driving 30 miles to watch a movie is Odysseus,
Yeah, right.
It's comparable to that, right?
Yeah.
So I go, listen to me right now. You need to go watch this movie right now, because it's an independent movie from Spain, yada, yada, yada. It's not going to be in theaters any longer because it was 4 people in a theater. And if you do not go, I am going to be so mad. So you have no idea. I'm going to be so upset if you don't go see this movie. So I had never spoken to them so passionately about this particular, about going to see a movie. So my mom knows that when I do that, it's like serious shit. And then she was like, okay. So they went, and they probably went to like a matinee, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. They come back, and my dad, it doesn't talk to me for like 45 minutes. He can't talk to me. And sorry, choking up just to remember this moment. And he goes, that's the best movie I've seen in the last 10 years. That's going to win the Oscar. That's your Oscar. And he's like, how did you know? How did you know? And obviously, he's from Galicia. The movie's set in Galicia. He was a fisherman. So he knows the Ramon San Pedro's, right? Like he knows that. And like the movie, but just the way that it was crafted. And yeah, I just knew for some reason. Then of course I told all my friends, you gotta go see it. And nobody went to see it. They wanted to see, Transformers and, the...
I'm never casting you guys in my movies.
Yeah,
You're done. You're dead to me.
Yeah. So anyways, and I started studying the films. The first film I had seen from Amenábar, and then I started seeing the behind the scenes and how they did it, that house is a set pretty much, that they built the house in a sound stage, and they had movable walls and the magic of cinema in that way, because I thought that they had actually shot it in that location, in that house, in the exterior. And in the end, one of the lessons, the other lesson is that I took from it is a very similar lesson as to like, Meet Joe Black, Awakenings. It's, this man, through wanting to die, he shows everybody around him how to truly live.
I mean, that's a great point, and I think you really see that, especially with Rosa and her story, right? Where she's kind of struggling, and she initially comes to him as a stranger, which is fantastic. She just kind of like knocks on the door one day, wanting to talk to him, and inserts herself into his life as somebody initially who's trying to convince him why he should live, like why there's value in this. And their journey over the course of it is so fascinating as we finally get to the end, and we see that she's the one who finally understands that last thing he said to her and said, I finally get it now, to show my love, like I need to let you die. And it was, what a journey for her.
It's funny. You said I recently watched it again because my wife had never seen it. And even the lady that's helping him, the lawyer, right? She's pregnant at the end. And then even her who's like such a champion for him and for all the things that we know about in the movie and about his right to choose, etc. And then even she goes, are you sure? Are you? And then he goes, oh, like you too? And she goes, I'm sorry. It's because we're all human. And even though you want to give this person peace and you want to be selfless, there's still a part of us that is human and flawed and selfish and says, but I love you and I'm scared of you, leaving.
The entire exploration of, if you want to die, it means I must have failed you, is hard to swallow, because it's played so clearly, just right across the bow, right? He never lets you forget that him wanting to die doesn't have anything to do with how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's stark. It's a movie that dances through the moral arguments in sometimes funny ways, sometimes sweet ways, mostly ways that just make me want to pull my hair out because we have to have this conversation. I'm curious what you get from a storytelling perspective as a filmmaker when you watch movies like this. What kind of movie does it make you want to make? And I ask that because you come to this show bringing with us a movie you made that is full of life and joy and progress, and you bring a movie to talk about that's about death and the practical implications of death. And I'm trying to figure out where you exist as a filmmaker between those two things. I don't think we've ever had so stark a comparison on this show.
Well, thank you guys. Well, it's because of the way the perspective or where I see it from. I think that death is a part of life, and you can't taste the sweet without the bitter. It's a line from Vanilla Sky from the remake.
Yeah, right.
And in this particular case, you can't know life without knowing death, and you can't know the beauty of what you have, if you don't know the finite nature that it has. And I think that the life component of it comes from the characters that surround Ramon San Pedro. All these characters that come in, that are looking at the argument or looking at the moral implications or looking at the situation from a different perspective, from his sister-in-law to the priest that comes in to try to lecture him and change his, perspective, to the kid that's going up and down the stairs, and how, now, he comes in, thinking one thing, and then, Ramon is so eloquent and so thoughtful with his answers. And then in the end, you see the kid's face and you go, wait a second. Maybe this is not what I thought. Maybe I didn't have all the information. And now that I see it from a different perspective, I've changed, right? And I think that it is in our nature to take things for granted. I do it all the time. We do it all the time. We take for granted that we wake up, that we're healthy, that we have eyesight, that we can walk, that we have parents, that we have people that love us, that we have food on our table. We take all that for granted. And my practice, certainly after this movie and certainly after becoming an adult, is to try to minimize the amount of times that I take things for granted, that I forget, and I fail at it every day and I succeed at it every day. And then this movie, Ramon is a beacon for that reminder. Don't take the life that you have and the treasures that you have for granted. It's what he says. Like she asks them, why do you want to die? The Belén Ruedas character. Why do you want to die? And I forget the full scope of the answer, but he says, look, you're there sitting. You're there sitting about 3 feet from me. And I want to reach out and touch you. But to me, that's an impossible journey. It's an impossible. And then that shot of his hand, and then the tracking to her hand. And it's literally like this close. And he wants to reach out because you can tell that there, he has a little bit of attraction towards her. And he wants to reach out and just to hold her hand, just to touch her. And that's an impossible journey. And what a crazy thing that we take even those little things for granted.
And that's, I think, a point that's brought up throughout the film quite a bit, is things that you take for granted. And one of the things that really hit me on this rewatch was when Ramon is talking to his nephew, and the nephew is complaining about his grandfather. And he says something kind of nasty about his grandfather. And Ramon just smiles at him, and he's like, what are you smiling about? And his response just says everything. It's like, that's going to hurt. You're going to think about that, and it's going to hurt for the rest of your life when you think about
One
what
day
you just
you're going
said.
to hate yourself.
You'll hate yourself. Yeah. And he's just smiling because he's just like, you'll see. Oof, man.
He says, one day you're going to regret what you just said so much that you're going to wish the earth swallowed you.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yes, that's it. That's it.
And that line stuck with me so much that I've actually said it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that have said mean things, whether it's to me or to uncalled for things. I've actually pulled lines from movies all the time.
Yeah.
People, sometimes people think like, man, like what a deep philosophical thought you just had. And I'm like, nah, I just plagiarized it from,
I was just quoting a movie
for this conversation.
But a powerful one. Yeah.
It's such an interesting space. And that was one of my observations about this movie, because it shuns big speeches, right? This is a movie that actually presents a stage for big speeches right and left. The biggest one that I expected was the heroic courtroom scene. They make such a huge deal about building a wheelchair for him to get him into the courthouse, and they don't give him the speech.
Yeah, no platform.
It is incredible that they do that. And so, as a film that ends up taking away the big stage when those small opportunities happen, they are as incisive as possible because they're balanced against nothing. They are the giant weight of this film. It is so preferential to reaction and implication and quiet humiliation of care routines that I think the movie, it keeps the movie from becoming too rhetorical, right? You sort of have to meet it at the level of the argument because there's no big stage to respond to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever look at this and think, I wonder what my "you're gonna hope the world swallows you" line is gonna be? I mean, this is an aspirational film.
You mean in Shadow?
Shadow, movies yet to come. I mean, I'm curious how you set your own bar.
But very high. And to me, it doesn't matter like in Shadow, what particular budget I had or the research that I had. It had to be as good to me. I'm going to be compared to The Sea Inside. The film, whether it had a tenth of the budget or the same budget of the movie or the resources. So I have to make it as good as I possibly can, and aspire to that kind of level of realism. And it all goes back to the characters and the actors that portray them, the authenticity to the situations and the authenticity as to how those characters behave themselves in the particular plot in the particular instance. Things like, big spoiler, right? Big spoiler here coming up. But when Alex says to her, "I might be deaf, but you are going to hear my voice." And it's going to echo, it's going to bounce around in your head so much that you're never going to be able to forget me. There is so much weight to that line for his character, for the deaf community, for him as a dreamer. And then for him as a dreamer, that's for me too, because that's the way that I'm not deaf. I don't have a closeness to the deaf community before the movie. I didn't want to be a lyricist or a musician, but I had a dream, and I had a dream about being a filmmaker. And it was my way of saying, yeah, I might be, my parents are not rich and well connected. I might have come to LA with 2 bags on my shoulder. I might be an immigrant. I might not know anybody here in LA, and I might have these things not going for me. But I have these other things. I have perseverance. I have a love for what I do, and you are going to hear my voice. You're going to hear it no matter how many times you try to block me or red tape me. You are going to hear my voice, right? I might be a music video director, but I am going to do commercials. I am a commercial director. I am going to do a feature. I am a feature film director. I am going to direct television, etc., 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 etc. And that's Alex saying, like, I might be this person, but you're going to hear my voice. And I think that resonates with everybody that sees it in the audience, that sees that moment, because I think we've all had that. We've all had dreams and goals, and big or small, and people in our lives and sometimes people that love us, that say, what's your plan B? Or, you know what, you shouldn't go in that direction, maybe because they're afraid. Maybe they're afraid of the possible failure, maybe because they failed, and they don't want you to go through that heartbreak. They don't want you to go through that hardship. Anyways, I think that it goes back to all that and to the authenticity of like the human experience. And every character has to have that human experience. Every character in the film and in The Sea Inside, I believe every character. In fact, I don't know if he did this when he was writing this film, but I do this with Shadow and with other films. I write the movie from the protagonist's perspective, or the leads, and then I give it a pass from every single character's perspective. So like, what is Yolanda in Shadow? What is Yolanda doing when Leo's bike, breaks down and he goes late? What is she doing? What is she reading? What's happening with Alex? And in The Sea Inside, it feels like every single character is the protagonist of their own story, and still serving the through line, still serving the main storyline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're definitely getting that in both cases, where these characters feel rich, they feel like fully lived in, and we really see that. And this is a great example of that, because it also takes place over a longer period of time. I mean, the lawyer that we mentioned, we meet her at the beginning. She meets this other guy. They fall in love, get married, have a baby, and so we know like this whole thing is like well over a year of time. And through all of that, I think the crux of it is Bardem and his performance, and keeping it grounded in his push for this decision that he has made. And I think, I mean, it's a crazy performance because he doesn't move. I mean, he has his like dream sequences that we have where he does kind of like walk and he's on the beach and stuff, but largely he's just laying there, completely immobilized, and it's just his head is all that he has as an actor. And he has to, I think what he created, which is amazing, is the way that he has his conversations. Like, he's somebody who's realized over these 28 years, he has to be like, everything that he's saying is that's all he has. And so every time he's talking, it's so crafted specifically for the conversation that he's having. And I think that's, and then how he's delivering it too. So, I mean, there's a lot of strength in carrying this movie on his back the way that he does.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that it wasn't too popular back in the day in 2004 to nominate an actor for Best Actor, even though they were part of an international film. It wasn't as popular back in that day. But I think that if this movie would have come out, 2015 and after, he would have definitely been nominated for Best Actor, maybe even won, because again, everything he does, it's from the neck up, right? Or almost everything, right? Like all his expressions. And when I show people that haven't seen this movie and I show them a picture of Bardem, and I was like, and I forgot how old he was. I was like, this was like 2003 when he did this. So he was young. He looks like how he looks in this still. He was like a young, strapping man. And here he is as present day Ramon San Pedro. It's bananas. Like, you almost don't recognize it.
It is. It's bananas. Totally my thought. It's interesting because, we look at these conditions rendered in film, right? The quadriplegic condition, and the last one we talked about? And it was so many years ago, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which is my favorite movie I can't watch again. Right? It's such a beautiful experience of interiority that becomes cinematic. And I think, this movie in Bardem's hands is quite special.
Paired with how Amenábar directs it, like when he walks and his footsteps are like delicately like leaps out the window and the opera swells and you just have these soaring camera over the forest. I mean, it's like, wow, like I feel that.
Over the forest and over the ocean. And let me tell you, I watched this in the Vision Pro, in the headset. I made it real big. I got real close. It feels like flying. It does feel like flying. It was perfect. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like when I started studying the film, it's like, how did they do this? Like, how did they do all these shots? How do they do the house? And yeah, it was a masterclass in part of the kind of filmmaking that I like, which is it's the camera and the actors and the directors and the team's imagination, and that's it. There's no like big VFX sequence. There's no like dinosaur that you can hide behind. There's no like crazy, action sequence. That's it. And for a film to have that much power and be so simple, it's the kind of cinema my dad likes, and it's part of the cinema that I like. And it definitely influenced Shadow, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Have your paths ever crossed, you and Amenábar? Cavorting in Spain, or no. The only Spanish filmmaker that I mean, if and when they, I mean, I would freak out. I would have to, and then, he's not like a popular star director like a Cameron or a Nolan, even oh my God, a Bayona. But I don't know, he would probably be freaked out, like, is this person gonna kill me or punch me? Because I would just be like, hey man, I would come with the crazy eyes. Hey man, I just want to tell you something, man. I gotta tell you this.
That one time in this one movie when you did that thing, man.
Yeah, listen, man. But I did meet Jota Bayona during the Oscar campaign, and he was so lovely and he was so gracious. And Jota's another filmmaking hero of mine. The way that he has done things, the way that he carries himself, and the way that he has created really a brand and brought Spanish cinema and Spanish filmmakers to the forefront in many different ways. And the way he champions other filmmakers is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, to work with him or Amenábar one day would be another dream come true.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, unlike, I mean, you carried a lot of weight on The Shadow of the Sun as far as co-writing it, directing it, co-producing it, editing it. But you got to get the composing credit like Amenábar does, because that's one thing I'm like, these people, I'm like, wow, and the music? My goodness, yeah. It's crazy.
Funny. I'll trade because, I'm a frustrated musician. I've loved music my whole life, but I've never taken lessons. Maybe one day I will. But I'll trade that one for the camera hopping.
There you go. You can shoot it.
In Shadow, I shot it. I was the camera op on the movie, and it was a blast. It was, I think, anytime that somebody says, let's figure this out this way, and why don't you shoot it? You op the camera. I'm like, hell yeah, 100%.
Nice, awesome. Well, See Inside is a fantastic film. People need to check it out, and same thing goes for The Shadow of the Sun. Before we wrap up, what's the distribution plan for The Shadow of the Sun? I know it had been submitted as the Venezuelan entry to the Best International Feature at the Oscars. Are you working on the distribution, trying to get it going right now?
Well, right now we did have a small theatrical window in the States, which is like a miracle for a movie in Spanish from Venezuela with like no-name actors. So we did Miami. We've done several markets: New York, LA, San Diego, I believe Colorado as well. And I think that we're pretty much done with the theatrical. It did what it had to do. It was great in Florida. It was sold out like 8 out of 10 showings were sold out. In
Awesome.
LA, we had a 70% attendance, which was fantastic. People are reviewing it on Rotten Tomatoes, and right now it's at 100%. And by the way, and I don't think that it's the perfect movie, so I'm sure that somebody's going to come in and, bring it down, which is fine. As long as people are enjoying the movie and spending 100 minutes, 90 minutes to 100 minutes with us and saying, I spent my time well on this one, right? And I learned something from it, and I was entertained, and I laughed, and I was inspired. That's one of the many goals that we want with a movie. And then now it's just about finding the right home digitally for it, whether it's a streamer or a digital distribution stateside. And then also abroad, we're gonna be in Mexico in theaters very soon, and hopefully in Latin America. So, we're little by little, until one day one of those executives at the big company says, "I love it. Here's money for it. Give it to us for a year." And then, if it's a good home and they want to show it to their audience, we want to partner up with the right team that knows that the audiences right now are very hungry for stories that inspire them. I've seen it with movies with big stars and movies with smaller stars and smaller budgets. People want to see content that inspires them and that shows them that outside of the things that are happening in the world, which are real and are, tremendous, sometimes horrible things, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we have to come together and really walk the path of our dreams in order to be the best version of ourselves, because we are the best. If we are the best version of ourselves, then the world is all the better for it.
Absolutely. Great way of putting that. The website is theshadowofthesun.com, and I'm sure that your team will be keeping it updated as far as any place where people can go check it out. So we'll make sure the link is in the show notes. Miguel, again, thank you so much for being here and having this wonderful conversation with us today.
Huge honor.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
If you were moved by the sea inside and Miguel's thoughts on cinema as an interior experience, here are 3 great next clicks. First, over on the next reel, our episode on The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, another extraordinary film about consciousness, limitation, and connection. Second, if you want more international films in this vein, we've also covered a whole series of foreign language films nominated for Best Picture. And finally, for a perfect back catalog companion right here on Movies We Like, our episode on Cinema Paradiso with special effects supervisor Chris Reynolds. A beautiful conversation about movies as memory, community, and the love of cinema itself. We'll drop links to all of those in the show notes. Thanks again to Miguel for joining us today. For everyone out there, we hope you enjoyed the show, and certainly hope you like the movie like we do here on Movies We Like. Movies We Like is a part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network and the Next Reel family of film podcasts. The music is Chomp Clap by Out of Flux. Find the show at truestory.fm and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Letterboxd at The Next Reel. Learn about becoming a member at thenextreel.com/membership. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we always appreciate it if you drop one in there for us. See you next time.
Hi, this is Tony Meaches,
Hi, and this is John Matthews.
and we are the co-hosts of the podcast Imprint Cast, the podcast dedicated to the Australian boutique label Imprint Films.
Yes, if you want to know everything related to imprint or in the imprint world, this is the podcast for you as we cover announcements and also upcoming releases from the imprint lineup.
Yes, and we are not the only hosts on this show. We also have family members. They include Suzanne Boleyn, Paul Berryman, Jim Mulvihill, as well as Ryan Kendall.
Also joining us are content creators who contribute to the imprint releases, doing commentaries, essays. They're actually on the show discussing the releases they worked on via deep dive episodes covering various titles.
You can also watch our videos on certain episodes with the content creators as well as us, as well as the family members. And of course, you can always listen to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast and our YouTube channel, Imprintcast.
And don't forget, Imprintcast is a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.